Alright, good afternoon everybody, it's your boy Akeem and welcome to today's vlog. Here to give you a recap of an amazing kickoff week 1 of 2015 college football season. Now there was a couple of major upsets and some great victories to start off the season. Starting with the upsets, number 21 Stanford losing to Northwestern 16-6. Now in some people's eyes, Keith Hogan was a good QB prospect for the 2016 NFL draft. But he's been starting off the season off bad, and he definitely has dropped a little bit his draft status for the next year's draft. Now, there's a couple other upsets that was so shocking during this past weekend, but one of them was my upset pick of the week with Texas A&M beating Arizona State 38-17. Quarterback Kyle Allen had a good game. He did have just one interception, but he did have two touchdown passes with 198 yards in the air. And their freshman wide receiver Kirk had a punt return for a touchdown and touchdown reception in that matchup. They definitely have some good speedsters on that offense, and I think they could be a good threat in the West Division for the SEC Conference this season. Now, one last upset that occurred this past weekend was BYU over Nebraska. Now I picked the Cornhuskers to beat the Cougars, but they had great efforts from their returning quarterback in Taysom Hill, who had 268 yards passing, and he also had a couple rushing touchdowns on the ground. He still was capable of running the football. He is a dual threat. But his backup in Magnum actually was the hero of the game and his game saver when he threw the Hail Mary pass when at the end of the game to help propel the Cougars over the Cornhuskers 33-28. Now many other games that occurred this weekend that I called out as my games of the week. Start with North Carolina at South Carolina. That was a good grudge match in which the Gamecocks won 17-13. Now this was a little bit of a loss for North Carolina, meaning they lost it for themselves. Quarterback Marquise Williams actually incompleted a lot of easy passes and made a lot of miscues in that matchup, and North Carolina pretty much lost it for themselves. He even had a couple of interceptions in the opposing team's end zone, which is that's not too good. In red zone situations, they're gonna have to do better than that. Now, had they actually had at least field goals in those red zone positions, they would have won that matchup, in my opinion. Now, a couple other games, Michigan State at Western Michigan. Now, this was a pretty close game for a little bit. They kind of had duked it out a little bit, but the Michigan State Spartans defense did good at the end, particularly in the interception in the end zone to help the team go with a win 37-24. Now, Connor Cook kind of messed up some passes in this past game, and he's going to have to make an adjustment because this week's game of the week, number 5 Michigan State is going to be hosting number 7 Oregon, which is going to be a great matchup for this week. Now, a couple other games I need to talk about. Michigan lost to Utah 24-17. Now, just like Marquise Williams from North Carolina, Jake Rudick messed up a couple of passes in that matchup. I think the Wolverines were capable of winning that game, but they pretty much lost it for themselves, and good job for the Utes. And I told you guys, the Utes can definitely pull off some good victories. TCU escaped at Minnesota 23-17. I thought that offense was going to do a lot better than that, at least a 44-point performance in that matchup, but they kind of struggled a little bit, but they still pulled off the victory, still in the top 10. Next up, Arizona beat Texas San Antonio 42-32. Much better victory than what they had a close game last season, but their defense does need to step it up for the next upcoming games, and there was a scare with Scooby Wright injuring his knee. I'll keep you guys posted on him. Next up, Boise State edged out Washington 16-13, actually with a home victory, and the returning coach of Chris Peterson, who's now with the Huskies. That was a sweet victory for the Broncos. Number 6 Auburn had a good matchup against Louisville, in which the Tigers did win 31-24. And I told you guys entering this season that Auburn was a little bit overrated, being ranked 6th overall. Louisville gave them a good run. They had a couple miscues, particularly even a one fumble return in which Auburn picked up in the game for a touchdown, and that was a good 7-point difference in that matchup. But quarterback Jeremy Johnson did throw a couple of interceptions and had some bad throws in that matchup, and I think that this Auburn team is going to have to do a lot more work. Gus Malzahn just needs to get that offense going. Hopefully they can turn things around in their second matchup. Next up, Tennessee crushed Bowling Green 59-30 due to the great ground attack, and even quarterback Joshua Dobbs did have a couple touchdown passes in that matchup. But the key thing was the ground attack for the Vols. Watch out for Jalen Hurd and company to lead the way in the rush attack for the Volunteers. Next up, I mentioned Oregon playing Michigan State this upcoming week as my game of the week. They played against Eastern Washington. The former team of starting quarterback Vernon Adams, who had a great game, well over 250 yards passing and a couple of scores, as well as a rushing touchdown. I believe he actually did a good job running and throwing the football in that matchup, but he does need to do a better job protecting himself. He did take a couple big hits in that matchup. They ended up winning, I believe, they ended up winning 62-42 in that matchup. Next up, my game of the week, Alabama against Wisconsin. Alabama did another great job. Jay Coker did a good job managing the offense a little bit. 213 yards passing and 1 touchdown. But the star of the game is their running back and Derrick Henry, who had 3 rushing touchdowns to go along with 147 yards on the ground on just 13 carries. He is a good Heisman hopeful as come towards the end of the season if he stays healthy. Now, last up, Ohio State against Virginia Tech. Now, Ohio State started off the season great with a 42-24 victory at Blacksburg, definitely avenging last season's loss. And they do have 3 players starting on offense, starting with their running back in Ezekiel Elliott, who had 122 yards on the ground, including an 80-yard touchdown run. What a great run he had up the middle. Next up, quarterback Cordell Jones. He had a great game. He had well over 150 yards passing, 186 yards to be exact, a couple of scores, as well as 99 yards on the ground and a rushing touchdown. Now, former quarterback Braxton Miller had a great game as well. Now, he's actually the first Ohio State player since Ted Ginn Jr. in the Fiesta Bowl back in 2016, in which a player had rushed and received a 50-yard touchdown play, which is a great game. He had a good game on the ground in his running ability, as well as 2 receptions for 78 yards in that matchup and a 50-plus yarder reception in that game. He's definitely a good player to look at for Heisman as well. Do not sleep on him. He is a good all-around athlete for the Buckeyes to use. He's an excellent weapon, and it was a good idea to switch him up to H-back/wide receiver. Now, the loser of the week, honestly, my precious Longhorns, I am really embarrassed. They got spanked, mollywhacked, destroyed by the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, 38-3. Our offense couldn't get anything going. Tyron Swoops is starting off the season off bad, but quarterback Malik Zaire for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish had a great game. He had 19. He went 19 for 22 passing. Definitely good running the football as well. Good, smart decisions throwing the football, and he could be a Heisman sleeper for this year as well. He's starting off the season well against my Longhorn defense. Couldn't get anything going offensively. That was part of the reason why we gave us so much points, because our defense was on the field so much. Poor play offensively, and hopefully we can turn things around, especially when we head into Big 12 play. But I am deeply embarrassed with this week's loss, and I hope we could get things together for week 2 of this season. Now, the next time I'm going to catch you guys will be on Thursday, where I will give you an openings of all my key matches and predictions for week 2 of this season. Thank you for watching this vlog. I'm your man, Akeem McCall. Be easy.